And this is a kind of a deconstructed version of the Hindu god Ganesha, who is the elephant-headed god. And you find that there's tusks, one of them is supposed to be broken, but each of the elements has been sort of opened up into other kinds of elements or symbols so that they're kind of visual. There's a visual power to them, and at the same time a symbolic quality that connects. And that's another one by her. Again, not a terribly good slide, but it shows Kali. As I said, she's like the patron goddess of this entire Tantric movement, and again the triangles, ascending and descending triangles, and a variety of other movements, that accompany this symbolism. So that's basically the sort of overview of Tantric and Neo-Tantric art. I think maybe you'll get a little more sort of insight into Tom's collection paintings. And if you have any questions at this point, you're welcome to ask me. And also feel free to look at the Neo-Tantra book catalog and also at my catalog. Are there any comments? Particularly, I'm also very interested in what you all might think about this material. And, if it sort of generates any kind of questions, comments, etc. Yes?
It strikes me there's so much Western work that comes out of this. And I think about huge range from Chicago Imagist painters when they were looking at this work, to even at the turn of the century, the Swiss artist Emma Kunz. Do you know her work?
Not very well, no.
But she would do these drawings of people's auras, and they would be on graph paper, and they'd do these geometric shapes with structures on a very formal level, similar to the Neo-Tantric work.
I see.
And it's just so striking that you have the same kind of symbology used to describe these circles, squares, triangles, things like this that are trying to describe the indescribable.
Right.
And they're being broken down into these really basic shapes, and it seems to be sort of a universal artistic practice to try to take this spiritual, emotional event to put it into these very basic, essentialized shapes.
Yes, I think that's very interesting. I'd like to get the names that you just mentioned and sort of investigate.
And even thinking about op art from the city of Bridget Riley.
Yes.
It's just so...
I think op art has some connection with this, and some of these later generation artists are seeing their work in terms of op art. Because also the sort of notion which comes in pretty early with Tantric art, I was talking to Brian about this, that these are basically optical objects. They're not representational, but purely optical, that you're meant not to try to think about what they're saying, but meant to just gaze at them with your mind as sort of free of any thoughts as possible. Have an experience. Directly have an experience. Yeah.
I was just wondering, like some of the contemporary pieces, they seem a little more self-conscious about that experience, whereas it seems like, and I don't know if it's just because there's so much history in these, and they're so old.
Yeah, that's possible. That's possible. Yes, of course. I mean, it's inevitable because, I mean, the contemporary pieces are kind of, sort of aware, of this as a movement. While, it's a social theorists talk about doxa. Doxa is basically an assumption that is so embedded in your culture that you don't think that there is an alternative. It's the way to be, you see. But when you kind of hit other cultures, then you realize it's an option, it's a choice. Then, doxa break up into orthodoxies and heterodoxies. So, this is what's happening. Now, it's a self-conscious choice, in a sense, even to be a neo-tantric painter, right? To choose this as a language or a vocabulary or proceed along these lines of, of expression and experience. So, I agree that there's bound to be a certain amount of greater self-consciousness, and maybe that kind of results in some little less spontaneity or sense of spontaneity that's bound to happen. But I think still there's a lot of vitality and power. That's at least what I feel.
I was wondering if you could talk about the context of the earlier Tantra work. I assume the later Neo-Tantra is mainly shown in galleries, and I was wondering if the work that was made in the 16th, 17th century or 15th century, what the kind of function or in culture and relationships kind of context.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting because actually, interestingly, not all of the contemporary works that you saw are meant to be shown in galleries. Some of these artists don't even, sell or, even exhibit for that matter. But, they are kind of circulated in friend circles or in circles of people interested in this kind of art. So there is a going back in some way to some of those ideas. But in the tantric art of the past, it was really meant to be initiate circles of initiates that kind of, teacher-student transmissions and, sort of within a school of practitioners, that kind of a circulation that it was meant for. Yeah.
How did they, I don't know, maybe, I don't think this is a very big question, but how did they eventually, how come the work is so small? I mean, where did that come from? How did that evolve?
Well, sort of originally it's because these are the Indian painting comes out of illustrations. They are manuscripts that are illuminated, right? So even these tantric diagrams, that's the other context, that there are produced astrological works, works on tantra, etc., sort of sacred kind of or secret hermetic kind of texts that contain these diagrams. So that's one of the sources. But other than that, it's basically kind of meant for it's intimate viewing. Okay, it's not meant for wall viewing, for example. And that's part of the reason why they are so small. The whole miniature tradition in India is basically because of a culture of intimate viewership. It was of course, the other paintings that you see, these are more elite viewership. It was kind of kept in albums and in the houses of, rajas and, aristocrats and shared with friends and family. But the similar kind of thing is happening in the esoteric circles where you have schools of practitioners of Tantra or whatever that are basically, kind of looking at these things as lap objects, as they sit and look at them. And otherwise, they're kind of, as I said, they don't belong merely to paper. Paper comes into India pretty late, actually, in the 14th century. Before that, you have palm leaf for some time, but a lot of the stuff before that is all gone. So you have this, as I showed you, on the ground through kind of temporary diagrams that are made just for, specific practice and then wiped out.